Hi, I'm Liz Hare, Artistic Director of Citadel Arts Group, and I'm delighted to be introducing the first of our Leithers One Family blogs to give you a bit more information about our audio adaptations of a wonderful book, which we were lucky enough to find out about. Oh, when was it? About a year ago, Bill, I think.
Yeah, it must be knocking on a year. Yeah.
The good people from Yardheads Theatre from Leith passed this book to us and said, this might be up your street. And I took one look at it and said, yes, because Citadel's always been really interested in historical material, living memories, tales and stories of Leith particularly, and of Scottish history. So we were very excited to have the opportunity of adapting. It must be about half the chapters of your novel, Leithers One Family, as 10 to 12 minute audio dramas, which follow the fortunes of the fictitious Preston family from the 1400s. I think I'm right, aren't I? We start the 1400s, yep, up to the present day. And I love the concept that the Prestons are not titled folk, they're not moneyed, they're not rich and famous. They are ordinary, hardworking Leithers with a tendency towards criminality in many of the generations. So we've got a lady in the night, we've got a pickpocket, we've got a smuggler, we've got a banker who's also a bit of a rogue. And each of the chapters focuses on one of the Prestons and shows them trying to adapt really to all that history throws at them, whether it's wars, plagues, pestilence, or just poverty and exploitation. So it's a kind of mini history of Leith and by extension Scotland, really from the bottom up, from the point of view of the Prestons. Does that sound a bit like the book you wrote? That I've summed it up accurately, have I, Bill?
It does. I think that's a very good sort of description. Yeah. And I think, for me, this whole thing of the family, the fact is we all come from somewhere. So the idea was just to kind of show where we might come from, which is this amazing array of individuals through history,
Yes. I mean, the Prestons, each story stands alone, but there is that continuity.
Yeah.
And there are certain themes. They're all aspirational, aren't they? They're all trying to get on, to improve their lot, to maybe get a nicer flat or tenement or get out of Water Street. And usually they fail, don't they? Usually.
Yeah. Well, they don't get a lot. They get quite a lot of bad luck in the book.
They get a lot of bad luck.
And then again, so do people, So I think it's in some ways it's quite realistic kind of way of looking at things,
But they're not depressing plays, although most of them have a very dark side to them. But the Prestons are never crushed. Their spirit shines through, and each generation comes back with fresh challenges to face and fresh aspirations. So I was wondering, Bill, you want to tell us a bit about how you got into writing the book? What started you off?
I think I've always been interested in history. I just find it kind of fascinating. And I love when you see these, you get a picture of like 100 builders who've built something 200 years ago. And there's hundreds of them and they're all gone, these people. But obviously they all had lives and all kinds of interesting things must have happened to them. So I've always just kind of been fascinated by that. And I always think that politicians should always have a historian on their staff, because almost everything has happened before. It's in some way or at some point. And so often you see mistakes being made where people just don't look at how it worked out last time, So it's just a fascinating area. As far as Leithers is concerned, I think it all started with I'm quite a keen golfer. And I came across, I don't know where I came across it, but I came across the story of Porteous, famous for the Porteous riots. And it turned out that the first ever game of golf that was reported in a newspaper featured Porteous and this other guy, Lord Elphinstone. And that just kind of blew me away. I thought, wow, what an amazing story. And then I just started sort of digging into kind of Leith history and gradually came across all these other incredible stories, And interestingly, since finishing Leithers, I've actually, at one point I considered doing a similar book for another town. And in fact, there's nowhere, I couldn't find anywhere in the whole of Britain that had the depth and interesting history that Leith has. Because it's in this kind of fascinating position that, you know, really Leith should have been the capital of Scotland, and for a variety of reasons of geography, it wasn't. So that's kind of where it all started. And, you know, once I started digging, I came across the story of the Highlanders and of the Bank and of the, you know, Leith Walk and Cromwell's invasion, you know, just all these incredible, just amazing stories. And the more I dug, the more I found. And originally it was meant to be it was just going to be a sort of loose collection of short stories. But then eventually I realized that there was enough material to connect the whole thing up and make it into one, you know, family all the way through, who were all connected by, you know, their grandparents or their parents. So that's kind of how it evolved. So I didn't sort of have this idea right at the beginning saying, oh, this is what it's going to look like. It happened over I think I started it about 5 years ago. I remember I was having a bad day at work one day. I think that's when I started it. And then I left it for a couple of years, and then it was really this last year I came back to it and spent a year on it doing it properly, you know. So that was it. That's kind of the story of how we got to where we are.
Great. Oh, well, Citadel Archduke's very grateful. I'm glad you persisted with this, because for us, it was an absolute gift. Apart from the fact we're based in Leith and we're interested in Leith history, I work with a team of about 11, 12, 13 older writers who are always interested to find new material that they can explore from the point of view of writing. And each of these stories more or less stands alone. And so they could have a lot of fun. In some cases, slightly changing them, slightly developing them. And you've been very gracious in giving us that artistic freedom to certainly follow your basic situations and your basic storylines. And some of them have been followed completely faithfully, but some of the others have been tweaked a little bit by the writers. Did that sort of surprise you? Or
well, no, I you know, instead the whole thing is there's more than one way to tell a story, you know. And I have to say, of the plays that have been done, I think they've all added something, you know, advantageous to the story. So I think that's worked great, you know. And I've been really impressed by the whole thing, you know, and how they put, because obviously doing drama is different than writing a novel. It's a different kind of skill, because you can't really sort of explain things without actually showing them. So yeah, I'm well impressed. And as you say, for me, it's just be the basic stories there, and feel free to develop it further, you know.
Well, we've been delighted that you've been so involved with the whole process of casting, rehearsal, the first read through, and you've been always there. So just tactfully insert any little bits of additional historical background that we might need, which has been extremely helpful. And that's been so supportive. It's been a great, you know, creative collaboration.
Absolutely, yeah. But you know, for me, it's been a bit of an honour for you guys to do what you've done. You know, because they say that, you know, any novelist's dream is to have something adapted into TV or stage or whatever. And, you know, given that it's my first attempt at a book, it's amazing that you guys have done what you've done. So it's...
Well, we're fairly new to adaptations. In fact, when we only started writing audio plays last year with COVID, as you can imagine, getting to grips from the point of view of our writers, our directors, our technicians, how you can tell a story where all you have is what you hear, voices, sound effects, and music, music has become a very important element in the Leithers plays. And I think we've gained a lot of skills. We've had a lot of fun learning how to write plays that could be recorded on Zoom, and our technicians are never satisfied. They're added clean feed, they're using Audacity to edit, to get the very best quality that we can. And yes, it's a challenge for every single one of us, for the sort of 20 to 30 Scottish actors that we've been working with, from right across the British Isles, from Orkney to London, 3 directors, 3 sound engineers, and I've lost count how many musicians. including the local bagpipe player Bob Lawson, who's contributed the wonderful pipe music to the Highlanders. This is the latest play to be broadcast. A lot of lovely fiddle music by Lord Patterson, and some beautiful singing, which people will soon hear when on the 13th of June, the Fishwives play by Lizzie MacLean is going to be broadcast. And we were lucky enough to meet a wonderful lady called Sophia Abramson, who sings in the New Haven Choir. And she sung some of the traditional Fishwives songs, which we recorded, and they're going to be used in the adaptation of the New Haven chapter of the book, which, as I say, goes out on the 13th. So we've got 7 plays there on the website, which is www.citadelgoesviral.com, and there are 4 still to go. So encourage all of you out there to listen to the plays, send us your feedback. Couldn't be easier to do that, and let us know what you think of Leithers One Family. After the success of Leithers One Family, Bill, I gather you're turning your attention to another historical novel. Would you like to tell us about that?
Yeah, hopefully come the autumn or winter, and it's called Leithers Two Families, and it's basically it's a novel set in Leith in 1832, which is a really sort of fascinating period. So hopefully that'll be out soon, and if we're lucky enough, it will be as successful as Leithers One Family, but we shall see. Okay.